I'm Mark Hoebee, producing artistic director here at Paper Mill Playhouse, and welcome to Director's Viewpoint. This is our first of this series for the season, and I'm thrilled to welcome our director and choreographer for On Your Feet, Alex Sanchez.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm glad to have you back. You've been with us before.
Mm-hmm. I was an actor here back in '95.
What did you do?
Brigadoon.
Oh, in Brigadoon.
I played Harry Beaton in Brigadoon. And then I served as your choreographer for West Side and Beauty and the Beast.
Two of my favorite shows of all time.
Mine too.
Just I loved them both.
And then prior to that, though, I served as Peter Pucci's associate choreographer for Carnival.
Oh, right, of course. I forgot about that too.
Yeah,
So
this will be my fifth production.
And you and I have known each other for many, many years.
I was in your West Side Story back in Chicago at the Marriott Theater.
Right. That we won't mention what year that was, but we go way back. So it's great to have you back.
Thank you.
And especially leading this company and this show, which is so special.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about, why you wanted to do this show, your feelings about it. On Your Feet, obviously, the story of Emilia and Gloria Estefan, and music.
I think music was the first thing that made me excited about wanting to do the piece, because when I was a teenager is when Conga came out. Right. And I remember sharing this with the company on day one. When I first heard Conga, it was the first time that I had heard music that used a lot of the traditional comparsas and melodies that I grew up with as a Puerto Rican. And when I first heard that horn coming out, and then I heard the congas and the percussion come in, my hair just stood up. And I was listening to it. And while I was listening to it, I was bouncing. I was driving an AMC 1977 Gremlin.
Oh, Gremlin.
Yes. And I remember just like bouncing in my chair. And then all of a sudden I felt like, oh my God, my music is mainstream now. And what I told the company is actually what I felt when I was, I think I was like 18 when that came out, is I felt like I belonged now. I felt like it was a connection to this country that accepted my culture, because it was on the radio, it was on the main station. And I have that vivid memory, so when you had talked to me about it, I was really excited. It was the music that connected me to it. But then, once I started to do the research and really started to learn about Emilio and Gloria's struggles and their obstacles, it made me realize, this is more than just about music. This is about, it's a human story about relationships and racism and obstacles put in their way as a result of that, and perseverance. So then it just became a very Shakespearean tale for me. And it made me want to be a part of it.
You grew up outside Chicago?
I grew up in Chicago. I grew up in Humboldt Park, Chicago, which is a Puerto Rican neighborhood. Both my parents are from Puerto Rico. They were that generation of West Side Story that came in the 50s and 60s. My mom came in a little bit later. She was younger than my dad. And they were both factory workers in Chicago. I was born and raised in Chicago, and then I moved out to the suburbs later. I think I was 10, 11 years old, to Schaumburg. And
near the mall?
Yeah, near Schaumburg.
Big Schaumburg mall.
That's right. And ended up going to Schaumburg High School.
Yeah.
But all the time that I was there, I still kept a very strong roots with my family, and I'd also go back to Puerto Rico every summer and stay with my grandparents.
Yeah, and so you were brought up with obviously a lot of traditions, heritage, Puerto Rican.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke Spanish in our house. Yeah. It was a primary language. I only lived 2-3 buildings from my godparents, my mom's sister and her husband, and I grew up with their family as well. As my mom ultimately, my parents divorced and she was single. And so the music, the culture, and also going back to Puerto Rico every summer, it was just a big part of my life.
Yeah, and family is such a big part of this story.
Oh, huge, the community.
I mean, obviously, we can talk a little bit about how they became superstars in their music all around the world. But it starts in their family unit, and that's been such an influence, I think, on, and certainly as it's told in the story too. When we think of Gloria Estefan and the Miami Sound Machine, we think of those incredible songs, the song list that you can just
it goes on and
right?
on. Yeah.
But it's interesting, and I didn't know until I looked at the show, the story of their journey and their struggles, right? Coming over to America. Well, first of all, they started their music careers in
Miami.
And talk a little bit about the plot line for the show about Emilio and Gloria.
Yeah, so it starts in...
Because she was actually studying to be a doctor.
Yeah, well, she was studying to be a psychologist.
Yeah.
That was her... fascinating. I mean, Gloria Estefan, what I learned, and again, I didn't realize this until we started working on this, is she was studying to become a psychologist, and she was also a French major, and worked at the immigration department for Miami International Airport as a translator, because she could speak fluent French, Spanish, and English. So she was working there part-time as well as going to school full-time. And on her off time, she would sing and write songs as a way to escape some of the family dilemmas that she was at, because she had to take care of her dad, who unfortunately was dealing with multiple sclerosis, and he needed constant care. And so at the old age of 10, she was taking care of him and her younger sister, Rebecca, as well. So whenever she had a free time, that was her escapism, as she always says, is to just sit down with a guitar and write music. In the show, we start with present day, 1990, with them, and then we go back and have this reflection on her as little Glorita singing to her dad, which I thought was really cute. She would sing songs to him on a tape recorder while he was in Vietnam fighting, and that's how they kept in communication. And then we slowly see her connection then to Emilio, how that was, how that came about, and then how their relationship blossomed, and how he pushed her to become the singer that she is, and how they formed this band together, and then he took on the role as producer. So we get to see all of that, and then within that we get to see all of the obstacles that were put in their place. There's a great scene in the Sony studios with their manager, who talks about how they can't cross over.
Right, because first Emilio had a band, and then he brought her into it.
Right.
And obviously the addition of that voice and her talent made that blossom. And then as they were first called the
Miami's the
Boys.
Miami Latin Boys. Miami Latin Boys, yeah.
And then they changed it to Miami Sound Machine.
Sound Machine, right.
And they were very hot on the music charts.
In the local scene as well.
In the local clubs, but then their reputation grew, but only among a Latin audience.
Right, it was only in the Latin markets.
Spanish-speaking audience. And so the scene you're talking about is when they're already well established and selling a lot of records.
Well, to piggyback on what you're saying, the funny thing is that they're doing Latin American tours in South America to 5,000 seat arenas, but then back home they're still doing bar mitzvahs and clubs. Right?
Nobody knows them in America.
Nobody knows them in America.
And so they go to their producer and say they've got this great idea for a record. And they play it for him, and what happens?
And he says, it's great, what a great rhythm with a great beat. And then he shuts it down because he hears Gloria singing in English. And so the whole thing becomes about how they have the right to produce an album in English, and he says, no, you don't, because you can't cross over because you're a Latin band. Right. So if you want to cross over, then change your name, change the rhythm, cut back on the rhythm. And then there's this really great scene, which actually was one of the things too that I loved that was connected to me, where Emilio says, change my name. It's not my name to change. It's my father's name. It's my grandfather's name. It's my great-grandfather's name. And it's a wonderful thing about his identity, that this music is part of my identity, and that my identity is not just a Latin American, but an American, because at the end of the speech he says, look at this face, because this is what an American looks like.
Yeah.
You know, and the connection for me was that my whole career, all my agents kept telling me to change my name, because I never changed my name.
And you are Alex Sanchez.
Sanchez,
Well,
yeah.
What's your first
Alexis
name?
Sanchez. Alexis Sanchez. Yeah,
So
that's my
was
real name.
your choice to go by Alex? What was that journey like for you?
It was because nobody could get it at the audition.
Oh, nobody could
so I
say
got
it.
embarrassed. Nobody could say Alexis Sanchez.
Yeah.
So it would be like, Alex? Alexius? Yeah. So I got embarrassed. So personally for me, I was like, okay, let's just keep it simple and just keep it Alex. But the last name is truly my identity.
Right.
And so I never felt comfortable about changing that. And when I saw that he was speaking about that, it really connected to my story as well in this business.
It's a very moving moment in the show. I think because there's so many layers to that speech that Emilio gives. It's not only about, there's a racist element to it.
Absolutely.
There's an artistic element about being true to yourself as an artist. There's a human element, and that whole, all his ancestors, I stand on the shoulders of the people who came before me, and
Right.
those in my family. So it is a very deep moment. And basically what that producer is saying is, if you erase everything that makes you and Gloria who you are as people and artists, then maybe you'll find success in America. And when he flips it around, what it means to me is, no, because we are American and we're going to be who we are.
Exactly.
And that really is staying true to all of that is what made them so popular, right?
Yeah, and it's the thing that pushed them to actually then, and pushed him, I think, to become a producer, because at the end of that scene, he says, fine, we'll do it on our
Right,
own.
we'll go out on our own.
Yeah, we'll do it on our own. And he knew enough to know that if he stayed true to his identity and that he stayed true to his conviction, that all he had to do was show it to the people, like send it to the people. And how do you do that? Well, I'll do it on my own. And so he figured out a way to do it, and he did. He started to, or they did, they started to achieve that success because they were able then to self-promote. They were able to push their music onto different clubs, different stations on their own, and pretty much self-produce their success, really.
Gloria says what his belief was, which is let the people decide.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Let us be the artists. Let us create. Let us share our talents and our lives, and then the people will decide.
Exactly.
And they decide. There's another part in that same scene, I believe, too, about when he talks about when he grew up, about the apartment building next door.
Yeah, where during that time, they said no pets allowed, no Cubans allowed.
And that was in Miami.
And that was in Miami.
Yeah.
And that would have been in the 60s too,
Right.
you know. So there was a lot of obstacles that were put in their way. And I think what's fascinating is the intelligence and the sort of capability and ingenuity and problem solving that they were able to find in order to promote their records, in order to get the records to the people, and in order for them to achieve the level of success that they finally had. They did that on their own.
Yeah.
I mean,
And they did
really
it.
figured it out.
Yeah, and they did it as a team.
As a team.
And there were challenges all along the way,
Right.
as you know.
Constantly in front of their face.
Yeah.
I love how you were saying that they did it as a team. It's true, because Gloria always said that the secret to the success of our marriage is that his weakness are my strengths, and my weakness are his strengths.
Yin and yang,
Yeah.
right? That great
Yin and
team.
yang. Yeah.
So then this is condensing the story so quickly, but they shoot to stardom, they do crossover, which is the dream I think of so many artists.
Right.
Country artists want to cross over, right? Pop artists want to cross over to the R&B I mean, everybody wants to get their music out, but they successfully do it.
Right.
They are touring like crazy, and I kind of at the height of their popularity, there's a major accident that Gloria is involved in, which I don't know that a lot of people even know about that.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Because you go ahead, Owen.
So they were on their way to from Washington D.C. They were on their way. They were on a bus, on their tour bus, and it was snowing really badly. And unfortunately, there was a semi-truck that rear-ended them, and it threw Gloria Estefan from where she was sleeping, and she landed in a way that broke her lower spine. And she was disabled at that moment.
They thought she wouldn't live.
They thought she wouldn't live because she broke her back.
Yeah. In fact, they talk about in the show, it's a little bit that some false reports went out that she'd actually died.
Exactly. Well, her mother, that's how her mother heard it on the news that she had died.
Right.
And that's the first thing that she had heard, not knowing the whole story.
Right.
And so, there was concern that she had died. But what happened was that she had broken her back, and they actually had her they had to fly her to a hospital in New York, to a specialist, and they were able to fuse her back by 2 8-inch rods apparently were fused in her spine, and it wasn't 100% that she was going to make it okay. I mean, there was a 50-50 chance that she would still be still be disabled, but the operation was very successful, and it took her about a year to recuperate from that. So she had to do painstaking talk about another obstacle in front of her, right? She had to do painstaking physical therapy every single day. She worked 5 to 7 hours a day doing all these physical therapy exercises so that she could just be able to stand up and walk.
And she did come back.
She did. She came back stronger than ever.
Yeah, it's crazy that, I mean, most people would have given up at that point.
Yeah.
But I think that speaks to her fortitude as a person and an artist, that she wasn't going to even let a broken back keep her from what she loved to do.
And that's the thing about the both of them. Dr. Newirth asked Emilio right before the surgery, is she a fighter? And Emilio responds, "You have no idea." And the thing is that they're both fighters.
Yeah, they had to be, right?
They had to be. Yeah.
And speaking of those two, we should talk a little bit about our amazing cast.
Oh my God.
So playing Gloria.
Boy, did we get lucky.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
So playing the role of Gloria Estefan is...
Yeah, Lenny Ganao, and she is an incredible actress, number one. But that voice is spectacular.
Yeah.
And the spirit that she brings into the room is very grounding for the whole company, because she just wants to do the work.
Yeah.
She wants to do right by it. Everyone believes in the story. The whole Latin community, I mean, the Estefans are like royalty to us, And so whenever we tell a story of royalty like that, we want to do right by them. And I think Linetti and even Brandon Espinosa, who plays Emilio, both amazing and sexy and terrific actors, want to do right by the story. They want to give it the right, the right spirit, the right tone. They want the audiences to really know these people.
And I remember when both of those individuals walked into auditions, they left the room separately.
Oh my God, yeah, I know.
They left and we were like,
there was no question.
Yeah,
there was no question.
And Linetti has just been announced that she's
going to be Bad Cinderella.
She's going to be Bad Cinderella.
For Andrew Lloyd Webber's new musical.
I know,
I'm so excited for her.
So excited.
Well deserved.
She's going to be on Broadway
Yeah.
shortly after this, I guess.
I think they open in February.
Yeah, so she'll go into rehearsal very soon.
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about Francisca And
Yeah, Francisca Munoz is Gloria Fajardo, who's the mother, and really quite an interesting character because Gloria Fajardo was someone who, very intelligent woman, very charismatic, and she had a PhD in Cuba in education. And unfortunately, when she was severed and had to leave Cuba, she had to do it over again. She had to go back to school so that she can get her certification just to teach again.
Right.
And she also lost her PhD. She obviously lost her husband. He was imprisoned in Cuba for 2 years. He was part of the Bay of Pigs that was unsuccessful, and because of that was imprisoned. And then when he was released, he went off to Vietnam to fight for the U.S. for the United States, and so she herself had to take care of the family. She had to wear the pants. She had to be the caretaker for both her mother, Consuelo, for Gloria, for Rebecca. She had to go to work.
And she was also a singer.
And well, prior to that in Cuba, the way that she supported her education was she was a nightclub singer.
Yeah.
And a dancer.
And we see a bit of that in the show.
Yeah, we get to see a little bit of that.
Francisca is amazing.
She's is incredible. Really, she is sort of grounding energy within the company. She's short like the real Gloria Fajardo.
Yeah.
She, but her stature, she's like a Yoda. Her energy is so magnanimous, and she has this sensitivity, this open heart. So you just can read her emotions.
And you speak about the Estefans as royalty, and she definitely is sort of the matron, the queen mother of that family, in real life, but also in our company. She brings that presence and that amazing grace and strength. She has a lot of.
And Francisca is from Australia, which I didn't
know that.
She's Australian.
Well,
she's incredible. Yeah.
So just in these last couple of minutes as we wrap up, we have an incredible company. You've directed and choreographed the production, which I can't imagine how you got it all done. It's spectacular. But what can our audiences expect to see when they get here?
I think they're going to, they're going to hear this music and they're going to be affected by it, whether it's personal or, I know that song. The music is iconic as well as just great. So even people who have not heard the music are going to listen to this music and go, wait, who are these people? Because it's that good. They're also going to get an emotional roller coaster of a story because there's a lot of heart in this story. There's a lot of heart in the book. Relationships, love, perseverance, reconciliations. I mean, everything you can think of. I mentioned Shakespearean. In many ways it is, because it does have all of that. It's a very human story, and it's a story that has a lot of emotion connected to it. And so I think when you watch the story and you really listen to it, and then you connect it to the music, I think you're going to go on a really emotional journey with this musical.
And I would be surprised if anybody in the audience doesn't know some of this music, because it is on the radio, in clubs, people play it all the time. It is part of just our general audio soundtrack. And there's so much energy and excitement to it. There's so much great dancing. It at times feels like you're in a rock concert watching Gloria on stage, and then it kind of ends in a little dance party, right?
Yeah, it really does. It's a mega mix.
And we invite people to enjoy themselves, rock it out in their seats. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed Director's Viewpoint. Both Alex and I hope to see you at the show.